Hey, welcome to Locked On Raptors. On today's show, it's a fun concept episode where we're handing out musical listening homework to the members of the Toronto Raptors going into this season with the help of wonderful music writer and Norman Powell aficionado, Sarah MacDonald. It's a great time. We have a lot of fun. Enjoy the show.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to episode number 1009. Hi, Sarah. How's it going? Episode 1009 of Locked On Raptors for... what day is it? Thursday, August 26th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the podcast on all your favorite podcast apps and on YouTube. Please go hit that subscribe button if you are new to the YouTube family. And welcome to all the new listeners we've picked up on YouTube. It's lots of new faces and people to interact with, which is very, very nice. And speaking of new faces, on today's show, we have a first-time guest, as promised off the top in the cold open, a Norman Powell aficionado and a wonderful music writer with bylines all over the place. It is Sarah MacDonald. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great. Overly eager to say hello, but I'm great. How are you?
No, that's okay. I should have told you that I still have to hear my own voice for a little bit more before bringing in the guest, because I'm vain like that.
No, I'm just like, I'm ready to jump in. I'm ready to talk about stuff. And it's like, I'm so amped because it's the morning? Am I allowed to say that it's the morning?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we're recording in the morning. Great. I have my coffee right here.
In the morning. I'm like,
while slugging away on this throughout the show. Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Excellent. Yeah, Sarah, we're very, very happy to have you. As I promised in the cold open, which you didn't hear if you're listening to the podcast version of the show, we are doing a very special concept episode today. We've done a lot of episodes like this in the past where we kind of deviate from the regular, let's break down how the pick and roll coverage is looking on defense or whatever that it is we talk about. And, have a little pop culture crossover. Last summer, you may recall, we did a big 2-part episode with Kelsey O'Brien and Coco Baskets, the wonderful Toronto drag queen, comparing Raptors players to RuPaul's Drag Race contestants. This is basically in that same vein. We're having some fun today. And Sarah, as a wonderful music writer, was so gracious to join the show when I pitched this very, very silly idea to her. Those who listen to this show know that I'm maybe not like the biggest music person. I kind of rotate around the same 25 albums. Just so happens that about 20 of those albums are from the time between 2000 and 2010 in the indie rock scene. And Sarah, you are extremely well-versed in this department. And so on today's show, we are going to assign some music listening homework for the Toronto Raptors going into this season to prepare them for the season to come, to maybe sort of fine-tune their games, their spirits, whatever it is. I could not think of a better person to have on to talk about this stuff. I guess before we dive into some players here, what is your relationship with this era of indie rock music?
Well, I'm perpetually 17, so I think that's the strongest case that I have for this era of music. But I guess it's like, obviously it's when I came of age. It's probably like the most boring. Like, I love this music because this is what was around when I was like 15, 16, 17. But yeah, like I bought The Strokes' Room on Fire the summer of like 2004, and it like just changed my life. I grew up in Kitchener, so it's like, I mean, Jamal Murray aside, but it's such a boring place. Like, it's such a boring suburban place, and now it's this like tech hub, and it's starting to get cool. And like, I don't know how I feel about that, because like this music was my refuge. Thinking about New York, thinking about even Las Vegas, thinking about London, like that's where like my imagination went. So yeah, great era. Happy that everybody loves it again, even though it was like 20 years ago, but here we are.
The style of the 90s is back, Sarah. These things are all cyclical. I'm very glad that the era of music that I know the most, which is not saying much really, is the one that's back in vogue. It's great. So yeah, on today's show, we're going to dig into, this is going to be a 2-part episode, by the way, because Sarah and I were going back and forth in the DMs planning the show, and we're like, oh my God, this is just going to take too long, and we need too much time devoted to this. So we are going to go 2 parts here, and we're going to address 6 main players on each episode, and then probably in the back part of the second episode, we'll just throw in some quick hitters on some of the back of the roster guys. But we're going to hit on the main guys, and we're also going to talk about Kyle Lowry today, because Kyle Lowry is very important and is going to need some musical homework and therapy going into his new season, where Jimmy Butler is going to be screaming at him all the time. So the players are going to hit on today: Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher, Khem, Birch, and Ishmael Wainwright, who I think is an interesting one we'll get to in the back part of the show. But Sarah, let's begin our odyssey here with Fred VanVleet, shall we? He is the new face of the team. He was the topic of Monday's episode of the podcast, which you can go watch or listen to, by the way. And he is now kind of the, he's got the keys to the franchise. Do you have a musical selection from the indie rock era between 2000 and 2010, to be as specific as we possibly can, for Fred VanVleet to get himself geared up for this very new type of season for him in Toronto?
Yes, I picked Old World's Underground, Where Are You Now by Metric, which I think is like their best album to me. Like Combat Baby, Successy, and I'm really bad at remembering song titles. Just give me a second here. There's just so many that are in my brain. But there's just something about this record that I think that, like, Metric obviously came out of the same sort of like Toronto rock scene as like Broken Social Scene and Vice, and they still have that like loose connection with Stars and stuff. And that, like, I think this record especially is the one that it really introduced them in a new way and in a new sort of powerful way. So what I want is for Fred to listen to songs like Dead Disco. I just can't imagine like making these lists at all were just like, it was so much fun, but just like imagining these players listening to these albums, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are really gonna love Maps or something like that. But just imagining like Fred listening to like Dead Disco and just starting to dance, or like Calculation Theme or something. But anyway, I picked this record because I think that Fred is in this new era and he's doing this and he has to define himself. And so I picked, and I feel like this is the record where Metric obviously define themselves outside of everybody else. Like there's Live It Out and then the album Fantasies, I think, that everybody loved. I didn't really love it that much, but Old World Underground is my number one. So that's my pick for Fred.
That's a really good pick. I also made some picks. We're going to defer to you as being the final like arbiter on what the actual pick is here, and your list is gold to me. I just wanted to throw some suggestions in because it was a fun exercise, great. And I felt left out. But like,
it's great. Let's debate it. Like let's be like, which is the better aughts album? Because we're definitely in our 30s, and this is what we're doing.
Let's bring this to First Take. This feels like winning television on ESPN. They've got some vacancies, as I've heard. But
Dishes and Dimes.
Yeah, gonna move past there. Yes, Dishes and Dimes would be a much better choice, actually, than anything involving me. So my pick here, so my sort of methodology here is I have, like I said, kind of a set rotation of albums I listen to. There's a lot of stuff I haven't listened to. Sarah, I want to thank you for informing my cooking listening all week long, because you sent your list over. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of this band or this band. I'm going to go listen to these now. So I took a collection of my favorite albums from the era and kind of reverse engineered and then assigned them to a player as best as I could. And for Fred VanVleet, I went with The Con by Tegan and Sarah,
Honestly,
mostly for the title track. Oh, really? Okay. Why is that?
Because you go first and tell me why you picked it, but I love it. And I think I can make a connection between like him and Kyle with this record.
Yes, that's where I'm going with this. In particular, the title track, The Con, is about sort of like not really being able to let go to a past love. And My concern, the reason I want this to be the listening for Fred VanVleet is, I think there's the possibility that he goes into this season sort of still thinking about the shadow of Kyle Lowry, still like looking over his shoulder to see if Kyle's there to put an arm around it, and he's not going to be there. And I think you can fall in a pretty bad trap of not being able to move on from, a very important relationship when you've got new things to worry about. And so I would say, give this a spin, Fred. Go dance around to the con, hit the high notes when you're singing it in the car, and, ensure that you're going to go into this season it's a bit of a warning tale, I suppose, of what happens if you do get hung up. And I think Fred needs to kind of do his best to free himself of any, specter of Kyle going into the season, because it's his team now, and it should be his team, and he's earned it and all that. Why were you surprised that this was my choice?
Oh, it's just, it's so emotional. Like the con is such a heavy record, but now hearing you explain it, like I totally get where you're coming from, that he's going to go into this season without his mentor, and now he has to do all of this on his. It's not really on his own, because he still has Pascal and OG and like the relationships that he's built with like the other players. But I'm just like picturing him listening to the con, or you'll hear me say this a lot. I'm just like the song selections of the players, just like, will you actually listen to this, and what it would be like. But just like Fred listening to like 19 or something. It's just it's a beautiful image to me, but so emotional. So I love that you went like emo right off the top.
Hey, I know the scene of the indie rock era, and also give me some emo stuff, and I will probably have heard it as well, and mosh to it at some point at a concert. Let's move on here to a heavy one. Speaking of heavy records, let's talk about Kyle Lowry off the top. It feels like a good spot in concert with discussing Fred here in the top block. Kyle Lowry was a difficult one. I think we both kind of had some trouble figuring out exactly what album to pin to him. Obviously, this is going to be him kind of looking back on his time in Toronto, getting ready for a new challenge in Miami. What is the album you have chosen to assign to Kyle to listen to get ready for this season, his first outside of Toronto in a decade?
I went with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs like big breakup album, Show Your Bones, which is the sophomore, like obviously from Fever to Tell. And I mean, Fever to Tell has all of those elements too, with maps and like modern romance, but Show Your Bones is so, I think, mature in a way that some of those songs weren't. Like, it's like leaving a relationship, it's leaving Spike Jones, but it's like listening to Cheated Hearts and, like save your, wedding rings for another day. But like, I know the themes can't be precisely pinned down to Kyle Lowry, and like he's such an enormous figure, but I really felt like the enormity of moving on and having to make that decision and what endings will look like between him and a team. That's why I picked this record. I think like we all struggle with endings, because I think humans just naturally do that. And I definitely did, even though we all knew in some way that he was going to be leaving. It's still hard, and it's still difficult for me. And it just kind of jumping off of what you said about the con and like having the specter of Kyle Lowry around Fred, this ghostly figure, I think that this sort of fits really well into that. And there's also like phenomenon, and that's what Kyle Lowry is to me. Like, he's this phenomenal person, and I think that also, like, it has a lot of the grit to it as well, which is like this like I take no bullshit type of stuff, which is like Kyle Lowry, but still really heavy and hard. I lost him to Florida permanently, and I'm distraught about it.
I think we all are.
It's unfair.
That's a really good pick. The one I went with for Kyle is, I had trouble with this one, and there was an album I wanted to work in because it's my favorite album of the era, and I figured, hey, maybe this attaches nicely to my favorite Raptor of all time. And also, I was listening to the album last night, which, man, this exercise was wonderful for listening all week long. Just had the best time. But I was listening last night, and the album I've chosen for Kyle is Dear Science by TV on the Radio. They're my favorite band from this era. This is probably my favorite album of theirs. I do like Nine Types of Light, but that's after 2010, so it's out of the sort of criteria we're looking at here. Dear Science is really, really good. Obviously, there's like a good sort of collection of more emotional songs and just like upbeat, happy songs. There's a couple, though, that really stand out to kind of describe the Kyle experience and feelings right now. And I think the one that really kind of hit me listening, look, did I kind of get emotional thinking about Kyle Lowry while listening to Stork and Owl by TV on the Radio? Yes, I did. That happened last night. Stork and Owl is this song about sort of how, you know, a life may be coming to an end, but that doesn't mean that there's destruction left behind. It can be, you know, a sort of accepted and peaceful end, and leave room for new things to blossom in its place. And that very much touches a chord, I think, in the whole Kyle Lowry conversation. So that's where I went. TV on the Radio, very good and cool and awesome band. I wanted to have them in here somewhere, and there's no more fitting player than I think Kyle Lowry. Plus, you get like Golden Age, it's just like so on the nose, like, oh yeah, Kyle Lowry, Raptors Golden Age, all that stuff. It just kind of lines up for me. But is that an insane pick? Am I off the board here? Where are you at?
I mean, I think that when you think of like the canon of this era, you have a few bands that just sit at the top, and TV on the Radio, I think, is one of, not the most underrated, but I think they fall a lot lower. I love the Strokes so much, but do they deserve to be at the top, and TV on the Radio doesn't? So it is that sort of argument of who is actually great, and I think that that's fitting for Kyle Lowry, because I think we think that he's like the best player. I personally think he's the best basketball player of all time, and that's my personal bias. But it's the same thing where you're like, I love TV on the Radio. They're not as ubiquitous as some of these other bands, and I think that it fits with that.
Yeah, I think you could argue that like Kyle's finals turn is like their Wolf Like Me performance on, what was it, Night Show or something like that, like where they it was a Conan where they really hit it. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to continue on here. After the break, we are going to dig into Pascal Siakam and Chris Boucher, a couple of very interesting choices. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Sweat Block. Look, it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, excessive sweating. People go through it and no one likes it, and it's like 45 degrees out today, so you're probably feeling it. If this is something you deal with either sometimes or all the time, you're certainly dealing with it today. Some of you may know that I have dealt with this as well. When I speak in public, when I'm on TV, I have to choose the color of shirt I wear very carefully. It's a mess. It's terrible. I don't like it, but Sweat Block is here to help with their antiperspirant wipes and deodorant as well. Sweat Block is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You can simply apply it at night before bedtime, go to bed, and the next morning you wake up, wash, and go about your day without worrying about sweat. Guaranteed. They have a dry shirt guarantee, meaning you get your money back if you're unsatisfied. That is amazing. And no, it sounds too good to be true, but literally, I have only had to use Sweat Block once or twice a week, and it keeps me dry the whole time. I'm a customer. It's great. I can vouch for the product. It is wonderful. No more picking my shirts based on which one will hide sweat better. I can wear orange again. It's wonderful. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, you got to check out Sweat Block. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON, or at Amazon and CVS. Today's show is also brought to you by DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that's letting you stream and watch your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way you can get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way is to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings you live TV on-demand favorites together. Your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and the many, many apps and remotes, and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Contents vary by package. All right, let's continue on here, Sarah, with the next couple players we have on this rundown of guys we need to give musical homework to. Pascal Siakam. Let's go with Pascal. a very complex figure, a very sort of up and down roller coaster career, a sympathetic figure in a lot of ways as well, because I think a lot of the score directed his way is completely unearned. Sarah, what's the album you've assigned here to Pascal Siakam to get him through and prepared for this upcoming season? Of course, as he's currently going through rehab with shoulder surgery as well.
I love that you're just like listening through it. Like let's be off him for a little bit. So the record I picked is the Featureheads, self-titled from 2004. I love this record. Because Pascal has gone through such a difficult couple of years, like the rest of us, but like particularly difficult in a way that like I'm ashamed of our fan base for being so mean to him. But I think energy is the word that I really want him to take away from that. And this record is frenetic. It's amazing. It's wonderful post-punk garage rock record. And I don't know if you'd ever listened to it before, but they're such a great band. They're out of, I always forget the little British towns that they're from. I want to say Sunderland. I'm probably wrong. But anyway, they have this wonderful cover of Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. That's the image that I want for Pascal. I want him to just like be in this like wall of sound type of situation, even though it's not like a typical sound. I want him to just blast so many guitars, shut everyone out, dance his little heart out, and just be happy again. I think that's the thing that's missing. And I think this record would be good to get him back on track to that.
That is a really good one. I did listen to this album this week, actually, because I'd never heard it before, and it kicked ass. It was a lovely listen while I was making some food earlier this week. So thank you for that. I went with another one of my, I guess, probably my second favorite album from this era, and it is Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco. And I have a theory that
was a
the
puzzling
run
one for
order. It was what? Sorry, puzzling?
It was a puzzling one for me.
Okay, well here's my let me give you this sort of vision here. This is an album, first of all, that has its kind of ups and downs. There's sort of somber, brooding songs. There's upbeat, sort of poppier tracks. There's a lot of anti-American sentiment, which I would imagine Pascal Siakam is probably feeling after this past year in Tampa Bay. My sort of thinking is like I'm envisioning him listening to the end of Ashes of American Flags and going right into the amazing piano and drum kick of heavy metal drummer. And that is the transition point between the Tampa season and this coming season. Like, I just want his soundtrack during his first warm-up of this year to be that drum kick of heavy metal drummer. Just boom, do, do, do. And then he just moves on into a happier time. He's got I'm the Man Who Loves You coming up after that. It's just going to be the heavy metal drummer and I'm the Man Who Loves You season for Pascal Siakam, leaving behind the dregs of the 3 songs about war, which is what you have in the previous 3 tracks on this album. I think the sort of more sort of brooding moments kind of line up with his personality a little bit as well. I have Yankee Hotel Foxtrot for Pascal Siakam. You were surprised by this pick. Is my reasoning convinced you at all that I'm maybe onto something here?
Yeah, I think with that, I love how like our albums are just like, okay, you guys are in a new era. It's time to move on, and like that's basically the theme that we have here. Where we're just like,
I refuse.
But no, I get it. I think like because I picked something that was like a higher energy, and then then you're okay, go, and I was like, okay, let's hear it. But now I'm convinced. I'm totally convinced.
Excellent. I'm glad that I haven't shown my ass and been too embarrassing with my selections. Again, I'm picking from a pretty small pool of albums here, so I did my best. It's actually kind of easy though. Too.
Like these are all my favorites too, and I feel like as I am an expert on this era, it's like these are the records that I still love and listen to all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I took some normie picks. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with my choices. It's okay. But I was gonna say something, but I forget. Let's move on to the next player. How about that? We move on to Chris Boucher, Sarah. Chris Boucher, an interesting sort of one-of-a-kind type player. Really nothing like him in the NBA, it seems. What is your album that you've assigned to Chris Boucher to prepare for this coming year?
I gave him The Suburbs by Arcade Fire. And I know that being a Montreal band to go with the one of 2 Montreal players is a little too on the nose. But I think that the suburbs, it is so like their entire discography to me has always been so grand and heavy with like Funeral and Neon Bible. But I think that the suburbs is this record that kind of brings it down a little bit back to earth, which is how I feel about Chris Boucher. Like, he is this extraordinary presence, but I also think that like you can say big things in a smaller way, which is what this record does to me, like Modern Man and Sprawl and Ready to Start and such. So I felt that was a better pick than when I was thinking of the other Arcade Fire records. Like, literally after the suburbs, like nothing else exists to me for Arcade Fire. But so that was
I regret to inform you that I'm a Reflector appreciator. I feel gross about it, but you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Yeah, I went to one of their shows during the era of Please Dress Up for Our Shows in Ottawa, Ontario, where, you know, lots of college-age kids are definitely dressing up to go to shows. I did not dress up. I went against the fandom, but yeah, wild stuff. Really weird that they used to do that. But that's a very good pick. My pick for Chris Boucher, you know, he's, again, kind of like a singularity type player. There's not really anything like him in the league, between his sort of on-court production, this sort of frustrations that come with him. And I chose an album that has like a similar sort of franticness, I think, and a similar sort of artistic, like it takes a little bit to appreciate Chris Boucher. And that is Block Party's Silent Alarm. Again, one of my favorite albums from this era. You know, I just feel like there's just like a lot of emotion to it. There's a lot of just like, you know, the drum kicks and stuff. It just feels kind of like Chris Boucher-y when I'm watching him play. It feels like you could have, I don't know, Like Eating Glass, like the opening part of Like Eating Glass, the instrumental interlude. That could be the soundtrack of Chris Boucher on the floor. You know, I'm not feeling like terribly good about this pick. It's such a good album, and I wanted to give it to like one of the stars of the team. I couldn't quite find the connection, but what do you think of this selection?
No, I think it's great. And I also think you make a compelling point for it. It's like one of the best albums to come out of the UK at that time. And I also think that like Chris Boucher is going to have to be a compelling, you know, player on our team. Like, is he going to be our center? Like, is he going to be our starting center at this point? And is he going to be the one that like, and he proved it last year, but I think that like, it's such a big record that, and he also is, you know, like you said, like there's no one like him, and he has this big personality, and he also has this like confidence. And I think like this, not underdog gets used a lot for this team, but this, like, he has to still fight to prove it, I think. And I think that this record is perfect for that.
Awesome. I'm continuing to impress myself by not embarrassing myself. Yay! We have one more segment to go through.
I was on my short list, and I was like so bummed that I didn't find a player for it, and I'm so glad that you picked it.
Yeah. Again, I'm picking from a small pool of albums. It's likely that if you have one that was popular at the time, it's on my list. We'll move on and get to a couple more players to close this thing out. Khem, Birch, and Ishmael Wainwright, I think, is an interesting one as well. We'll get to that in 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars money can buy. They have 9 amazing flavors in their traditional lineup, including Cherry Barcia. There's a music reference. Also, mint brownie and cookies and cream. Orange, strawberry. There's a whole bunch of great ones you can try out. If you're not sure which one is your favorite yet, you can get a mixed box with 2 of each of the 9 flavors and figure out which one you want to order a full truckload worth of. Also, all their bars are great tasting, and they're also healthy for you too. All the bars have either 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, which is not a lot, much less than your standard candy bar, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, all amazing flavors, all tasty, all good for you. I like to have them when I'm going for a workout. It's a nice way to not feel too bogged down and also get the energy and fuel you need. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That is the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our pals over at betonline.ag. It's that time of year, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 100% welcome bonus, meaning if you put in $100, you get $200 to play with. And if that wasn't good enough, they also have an opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Buccaneers and Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100, all one word. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Be sure to use the promo code LOCKEDON to get your 100% welcome bonus. All right, Sarah, let's round this thing out. We've got Khem Birch on tap to assign some musical listening to. Another Montreal fellow. Are you going with another Montreal band for Khem Birch?
Yes, unfortunately. I'm sticking
No,
to my theme
it's
here.
good because I know what album it is and it rocks. So
yeah, so I picked Apologies to Queen Mary from Wolf Parade. And honestly, like, I think it's a great record, but like the reason I picked it is the drum intro on, oh God, like You Are Not My Father, I Am Not Your, I always, like, it's a long song title. But
yeah, it's a Fall Out Boy ass title, yeah.
Yes. But I love the drums. And so I think of that and I think of dunks, and that's what I want for Khem Birch. Like, it is a bit of a serious record. It travels all different types of things. It has ghosts on it as well. And I feel like there's this sort of like moving on type, as this is clearly the theme that you and I are going with here, is that everybody has to move on and like move into this new space. But I love the energy of that track, and there is a bit of a franticness to it as well. And so I just want Khem to like listen to it with his he's very stoic to me. The man like barely emotes in a way that's wonderful, and it's so serious, but he has such power. And so the power of those drums, like that was literally, it was like this percussion, Khem Birch, to me, that's perfect.
That's a really good one. I like that a lot. That's also one of my favorite albums, and a very good live show if you've ever gotten to see Wolf Parade. Highly recommend.
Yes.
For me, my choice here was I lost it on my thing here. Who did I go with? Oh, I went with Neon Bible by Arcade Fire, second Arcade Fire album to come here. The reason I went with this is, Neon Bible is the second record from Arcade Fire. Obviously the first one is pretty grandiose on its own, and maybe you could easily go with that one. But I think the reason I'm going Neon Bible, it's the second one. Arcade Fire figuring out a little bit more about what they can do. They're kind of scaling things up just a little bit, trying some new things. And that really, to me, resembles Khem Birch's final 19 games with the Raptors, where he was kind of plugged in and they were like, hey, you seem to have some skills that the Magic just forgot about. Why don't you try it and see what you can do here? And that maybe leads into this season being his suburb season. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of my line of thinking there. Again, not one of the ones I feel strongest about in terms of the thematic alignment there, but Neon Bible for Khem Birch. Thoughts, Sarah?
It's a good transitional record. Like I said, I acknowledge Funeral, Neon Bible, and the Suburbs from Arcade Fire, but like Funeral and the Suburbs are so much stronger to me. So then, this is the year that you test it out. This is your development. Let's figure out what we're trying to do here. And there is a bit of that strength. And I think you're right that it can lead to something like the Suburbs.
Yeah. I could also totally envision Khem Birch listening to Intervention while warming up one day. Like, he's got the beats on, you're like, what is he listening to? And it's Intervention by Arcade Fire. Just that really sort of, emotional, sad, heavy drum. Like, it's just, that's the choice there. We are going to move on to the final player on today's list, Ishmael Wainwright, a new addition to the team. I just have like a quick throwaway answer for this one. You have a far more thoughtful answer lined up, I'm sure. What do you got for Ish Wainwright?
Okay, so this was one of the most difficult ones. I'll say like this one and Malachi Flynn and Kyle, obviously for other reasons, but like these two were the hardest for me. I don't even know if it fits thematically. I just want to think about Ishmael listening to Blood Buzz Ohio. I picked Nationals High Violet, which I love that record. And I know like National fans will be like, that's not the best one. Like, what about Boxer and stuff? But I don't know. I think that I have such a personal relationship with that record. And so I was like, the only reason I'm giving this record to you is because I love it. And I love to give people who I may come to love and respect albums that they should listen to. So it's really, the answer is not that thoughtful. It's more like, this is a really powerful record. I just love Matt's voice and I love the way it's constructed. And maybe Ishmael would like it as well. Like, it's really not that thoughtful. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I was even less thoughtful with my selection. I went with Transatlanticism by Death Cab just because he played overseas last year and has come back over to Canada.
But it's still like, it's a great record. You're like, listen, here's the flimsy reason why you should listen to it, but then you're going to love it when you get to it.
Well, that concludes the list we had. I guess we have a couple minutes here, Sarah, and I will give you the floor. I see the Norm Powell jersey in your background. Do you have a Norman Powell album that you've lined up here? Because, of course, he's your fave. I don't think anyone was more upset by the departure of Norm Powell than you. As totally fair. Norm Powell rocks, and we all have our faves. What is the album you have assigned to Norm Powell to prepare for his first full season in Portland?
So like that always lives there. And I realize that like, as I'm sitting here for this podcast,
it does look staged. I have to tell you.
It probably looks like, I mean, like the other one that I have is like Gary back there. So it's not like super staged. So I'm giving Norm my favorite record from 2006, which is With Love and Squalor by We Are Scientists. And I guess it's largely because of the song The Great Escape, and Norm had to leave. And there's like, it's also one of those like high energy records, and I think they're really fun and stupid. I don't know if you've ever been to a We Are Scientists show or I watched any other videos, but they're so over the top. Like watch the video for Nobody Move, Nobody Gets Hurt, and The Great Escape, and they're just so silly, but really great energy. I love that record, and Norm's so serious all the time. He's just in the grind, so that's sort of why I gave it to him. It's just like, let loose a little bit. You know, this is perfect music for like really getting into that mindset and being in Portland. But yeah, you're right. I took it really hard. I was really upset. Knowing that he was leaving.
Yeah, I mean, it seems as though you've come around on Gary Trent Jr., his replacement, who we're going to talk about on tomorrow's episode. Yes. Yeah, he's lovely, and I have a nice pick for him tomorrow, and I think you do as well. I have to look at your list again, but either way, that's going to bring to an end the first part of this exercise. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and Sarah, thank you for being here. You're going to get the opportunity to do this on tomorrow's podcast that we're recording on Thursday anyway. But where can people find your work, and where can people, or do you have anything in particular you'd like to plug?
Oh God. You can find me on Twitter, even though I have a private account, but it's Sarah S. MacDonald, you put McDonald on here. Whew.
Oh no. I'm a monster. I'm a monster. I knew that too, because I spelled your name properly on the actual Chiron, and then I'm a fool. I will fix that for the next episode.
But it's Sarah S. MacDonald. Honestly, like I've had Sarah MacDonald travel with me my entire like professional life, so like I get mixed up with a bunch of other people. I don't have any particular work that I want to plug. If you want to look at my portfolio, it's the same Sarah S. MacDonald.com. And the thing that I would love the most is people to listen to these records and just have a lot of feelings. That's what I want.
Feelings are really good. As are spelling your guest's Twitter handle correctly. I'll get that right tomorrow. Sarah, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back again with this very fun and silly exercise, part 2 of it with the rest of the Raptors roster on Friday's podcast. Until then, you can subscribe, rate, review, support the show on YouTube, give us a follow, leave some comments. That's always fun as well. And in the meantime, go and listen to Locked On Blue Jays, as the Blue Jays are, doing something. They won a couple games recently against the White Sox. That's fun. AJ Andrews has you covered over there on Locked On Blue Jays. So go and take a listen. We'll talk to you again on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.